always what they seem. There are also moments in time that we see, hear, and feel things we cannot explain. 32 will explore all of the aspects of what lies beyond our physical world, and maybe, just maybe, get some answers. Until then, we will keep wondering.
Welcome everybody to one-off special of 32. We haven't been here for a little bit. I'm your host Jay Hill with Elizabeth Merriquin. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Yeah, so we decided that we would kind of do an improv, just a live. Actually, we're on YouTube and TikTok right now. So thanks whoever's tuning in can tune in. I'll have the chat here. Um, so yeah, it's been a minute, but I've been busy with other shows too. My metal music show and a couple other things, paranormal memoirs, and yeah, it's just I keep myself busy. But
Yeah, you're like the podcast king.
yeah, I know. I mean, and I've got a excuse me, I've got a special Fourth of July for my music podcast too to go to a couple blocks from my house here, so I got to tear down all my gear and reset it back up. And yeah, I got some bands that are going to be there, and I got to interview them, and so it should be fun. I'm kind of looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Ready.
But
Do you have a favorite one you're looking forward to?
um, I interviewed the one band already, and these are kind of they're all local bands, but I've only heard the one, so it's going to be interesting to see. Nightmare Hippie Children are supposed to be pretty good, and I'm looking forward to hearing them. And Syconson, like I said, I listened to them already, and I'm good friends with them, and so yeah, I mean it's really pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, I've been trying to do a little bit more of my spiritual stuff. Actually, I'm going out of state. I'm going to an investigation that's going to we're going actually the paranormal team K2 Paranormal Research that's in Tennessee. I'm part of that. We're going to Ohio to a
Oh, that's
place
exciting.
called Broadwell Funeral Home, and it's going to be
Okay.
like from 7 p.m. at night till 11. So we're going to sleep there. Yeah, and I'm going to do some live. I think Encompass Media on YouTube is intermittent lives, and you know just see what we get and to do some small interviews and whatnot. And it should be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You
it's
going? You
gonna
said you're
be
going with
supposed to be
the team.
yeah, yeah, about 11 of us, and so it's not costing me anything. My good friend Kelly Schaefer, um, she's going and she's paying for it. So
Nice.
yeah, it's a gift to the team. So I'm grateful, and I want to thank her for that. Um, yeah. So if anybody hasn't heard, she has a page on YouTube, or not YouTube, Facebook, called Kelly's Haunted Adventures. So you can look that up as well. And
Cool.
yeah, she was also part of the Cemetery Files with me, and we did a one-off not too long ago, which was a lot of fun. We might bring some of that back because we really did have a lot of fans that really were upset that we weren't doing that anymore, but just ran out of time. We didn't have time, and but yeah. So, but anyways, enough about me. Um,
No,
I
it's
wanted
very
to, I wanted
exciting.
to, yeah, I wanted to ask you. For those who don't know, Elizabeth is a very good medium, and she was somebody that was on my radar some years ago, and I kind of tapped her to really kind of come out of her shell, and she really has. And um, she's such a blessing to talk to, And so for those who are interested in mediumship or whatever, you can also reach out to her. Um, you can reach out to me as well. But it's having talk about spiritualism, and especially with having this podcast 32. It's all about ascending and growing in spirituality and just you know kind of finding out who you are and whatnot. But
I feel like a lot of
uh,
people are waking up these days. I mean, I don't know if it's just that I'm paying more attention to it or if it really is. But it really does feel like more people are realizing that, hey, I have this thing called an intuition and or I'm
hmm
a medium or yeah, I'm
right,
not
right.
crazy, you know?
No, yeah, you're not crazy. There
Yeah,
are
it's
some people
really
out
kind
there
of
that are different, but not crazy.
yeah,
But
it's very exciting.
yeah. So Um, I kind of wanted to touch a little bit about not so much the spirituality side of it of 32, but we talk about the paranormal on this show, and we also talk about different locations and whatnot. And I wanted to have you share. We talked a little bit about battleships. I
Mhm.
wanted you to share your story about your experience on the battleship that you had gone to.
Yeah, so I've gotten to be really only on one that was considered a museum, and I cannot remember for the life of me the name of it. It's in Corpus Christi. It was ages ago. I went with my friend Kendra and Daryl and the family. They actually have a paranormal team in San Antonio, West Side Paranormal. They're probably I think they're the first team that I was actually on, but we went on there just as like a sightseeing to see it and to feel. And at that time, I wasn't really tapping in too much to anything other than what do you sense, you know? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but when you go on, just walking onto that location, you have a sense that you're always being watched. It's almost like you can feel
Right.
the history when you go down to the boiler room and you just it's almost like you've got the watchful eye of you're not supposed to be in here. What are you doing in here? Uh, I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember like being touched or anything. The kids were super excited, but I do know I saw a lot of things like outside, my peripheral vision of like, wait, there's not a person there. What did I just see? Or a voice, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing down there. There's no one down there. There's no intercoms. There's like trying to explain it away in any way that you can. Uh, and
Mm-hmm.
just being now it'd be more like second nature, like, oh yeah, okay, I know you're here. Versus then it was
Yeah.
like, oh
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, great
Yeah.
people.
Then part of that, having those experiences, back then when you weren't really aware of certain things and your gifts and whatnot, you were just kind of just there in the moment. But when you look back at it, you kind of wish, man, I wish I was really, farther along in my spiritual walk and whatnot. I would have been able to pick up on a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, my friend Shane Feek, I did the my first podcast with him, Studio Six Paranormal Podcast, and he had a great story, and he was investigating a battleship that was actually kind of like, I think it was a museum or something like that. It was on Lake
Oh.
Michigan, and it had been stationed there after World War II, and him and his wife were investigating, and there was a lightning storm on the outside, and they were it just everything seemed to be charged. Well, trying to he was messing with one of the radios on the bridge, and there wasn't supposed to be. I don't think that there was any electricity, or there might have been. I don't remember. It's been
Yeah.
a while. But when he turned the radio on, he got old messages from the 1940 or from World War II.
Wow.
He got well, a kind of like when they would make
Mhm.
announcements on the broadband and on the speaker and for all the troops and everybody on the ship to hear. He actually got those on audio
Yeah.
file, and he got a sermon from a preacher, and he said it was unreal. I mean, they had like when if they were I think that they were to get
Yeah.
hit, they would say they would be like yelling into the speaker would be having the commanding officer whoever uh, sounding the
Right.
alarm, you know, and this and that, and he got that on audio on
Yeah.
file, and he's he sent it to me. Now I tried to listen to what I could, but it's so big of a file that I couldn't really download
Yeah.
all of it. But that was so long ago. I might be able to do it now, but I know there's parts of it that I've heard. Um, and there wasn't anybody on the ship, but it was there was so much lightning on the lake that it would just charge this boat, this
So
ship,
do
and
you
but
think it was memories like residual? Or do you think it's like parallel timeline where really he's getting
I think that there was parallel timelines.
ah
I think the electricity was causing the ship to basically kind of like
yeah,
fluctuate back and forth. I mean, and a lot of the emotions that go through there, especially on a ship with, the fear of being
yeah,
sunk, you know. But yeah, I mean, he said that it was the one of the wildest things that he's ever experienced. And he's a science
yeah.
guy. And he was all about the science aspect of it, but he couldn't really explain this. But he would tune in and dial in this old radio, and stuff would come out of it.
I just think there's so much that we don't
So
understand. Like I just yeah,
I do, I believe you in that. I mean, you're not wrong. I think there's a lot of different stuff out there that people haven't really tapped into. We're trying to tap into some of it, but Um, actually, it's just I think that we're just basically hitting the tip of the iceberg.
yeah,
I think that there's so much more.
yeah,
There's some other stuff that I know that I've listened to some other spiritual people talk, and you listen, and it's like, man, they're way out there, but are they really?
yeah. I mean, just
You know
you
what I
don't
mean? Some
know.
of it's like I can't digest all that, but there's some of it that's like, holy cow,
Yeah,
this guy sounds crazy,
yeah. I know that
But yeah,
the
it's
one
just
thing I hear a lot is, I mean, if you think of the most wild thing, like that is the least amount. Like that's as low as it goes. And then it just makes you think like
hmm
what
hmm
what else is like what there's so much out there that we just don't know.
right, right, right. Yeah, I mean, that's that's the question right there. It's like there's what is out there? Is there so much more? Is there so much more that we just don't know? But yeah, um, there's other places too. Um, Now, let me ask you this: do you think? And I don't know how many people are actually watching, but I mean, do you think that certain locations that have had like tragic events befall that location. Let it be, maybe it's a plane crash or a building fire or something in that location or something that, you know what I mean? Do you think that that is a common place for that where activity is going to happen? Or do you think that it's just every so often? You know what I
Yeah. So
mean?
without me having any kind of like scientific background or knowledge on any kind of like research,
Right.
I think that type of activity is everywhere. It's just heightened when you have something where something so tragic happened
hmm
that either a person didn't realize that they weren't here anymore, or uh, it's something that they're trying to get a message across, or uh, you know, something that attached to them that stayed there to try to then impact
Right.
someone again later.
Right.
Because I've been at locations like
Right.
that, and like, so I have no scientific evidence, I have no like research background on it. I just know that when I've been to places where I've seen that type of thing happen, the activity or the emotion that I have experienced as a physical medium has been just insurmountable in comparison to when I go to somewhere and I'm like, oh, okay, there's a spirit here, there's someone here, and they have a loved one, they want to get a message to. No fear, no tragedy associated with it, just they love someone and they want to get the message to someone.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and talking about, traumatic or tragic events or whatnot, I when I was in Colorado, when I was on that trip with a friend of mine, and we were staying in a cabin, and I was staying. It was a small cabin with a loft, and we had been driving all night, and so we were really tired, and we were up until like wee hours in the morning, and then we decided to take a nap or to rest or whatever. And there was, I remember it was a queen size bed, and so she was laying next to me, and I was kind of sleeping or trying to, and I opened my eyes, and there's that guy that dressed in, looked like a lumberjack,
Mm,
but sitting in the chair next to the table next to
yeah,
the bed, and screaming at me without any words
yeah,
coming out. I mean,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It was like watching a silent
yeah,
movie, and he was so, I could feel his anger and his intention of wanting to yell at me and hurt me or
yeah,
whatever. And that was the only time I really I passed out from
yeah,
fear, and my heart was pounding so fast after that that it woke her up because I she had to shake me awake. And yeah, and then when I look over, I don't know how long I was out, but that I was
yeah.
terrified. And come to find out that there could have been an event that happened there. There could have been something that could have been just an old timer, that died in that, because it was off the road, and it was in the woods, and it was in the mountains in Colorado, and way up
Yeah.
there. And these cabins were old, and there was, they're pretty small, but they were remodeled, and so they were really cool. But man, I tell you what, I did not want to stay up there. I refused. I was like, yeah, no,
How long were you there?
whoever that guy was, a day, two
Yeah.
days, a day and a half, maybe. Yeah, it wasn't that long. And then we went to another hotel uh, in a different town and up in the mountains. And that's when something followed me. That's when I had black shadows in the bedroom where we were at the next one.
Wow.
And that was like, okay. But I wasn't, I don't know, it was hard to describe. It was more of a, okay, I get it, but it wasn't so much I was afraid. It was more or less I don't know, maybe it was the moment that I was so terrified at that moment that was like, okay, well, I've been terrified, scared, and you know, and passed out,
Scared the cat.
and that's your cat. Yeah, you know. So maybe it was my mind and my body saying, okay, that's it. Now you're not going to be scared. I don't know, but it was just really weird. I
Yeah.
I really couple years later, I sworn it wasn't until after my stroke that I really started to, after I healed, and then I started really come into my gifts and realize who I was and this and that. But
Was that
all
like
those
your first
experiences.
experience like that, or had you seen
No,
something like that before?
no, that was probably second or third time I seen a full body apparition. or a ghost
Well, not just
literally
that,
that
but that gave you those emotions, because I really feel like,
just that time, just that one moment, it
yeah,
had really, I don't know, threw me except for, well, it was before that actually. It was
mm,
when I had my interaction with the darkness. I will just say the darkness, and
yeah,
when my belief system changed, and yeah, that was the only other time that I was terrified. But that was in my 20s. But uh, this time it was just he was as real as I could just sit there and touch it. He was that close. I
oh
mean, it
yeah,
was like right
absolutely,
next to the bed because the loft was really small and it just had the bed and then a small table and then a chair right next to it, a rocking chair, and then it was just, and it was almost like I could smell the wilderness on it. I mean, that's how close he was,
yeah. So he was
and that
able
was
to
just one of
impress
those
his
things where,
emotions on you, and that was
yeah,
probably a lot of the fear where it sparked.
yeah, but it was a really crazy. Went through a lot of electrical storms on the way
Mm.
there, and had just odd experiences. You know what I mean? It was just, I don't even know how to describe it. Um, yeah,
So did you get that feeling of like something's going to happen? Like I just know something's going to happen, or was it just kind of you
yeah.
went in? Yeah.
I kind of did because after that trip, the car that we were, or her car we were driving, the alternator went out.
Oh,
Car was fine before that. I mean, didn't have any issues. I think she had it already had it serviced, so there was nothing wrong. But as soon as that trip, I think it was on. We were on the way back. I think that's what it was. If we were on the way there, I don't remember, but it broke down. Actually, we were on the way there, and we were going through Kansas, and we were going through this electrical storm that was totally bizarre, and it was at night, and the lightning was like spectacular, but it was something was off. The clouds were different, and it was like going into fog. It was like a bad horror movie. I mean, it was really freaky, but that was when I looked down and I was driving doing 55, and then we started going through that storm, and then when we kind of got through it, I looked up and it had been like an hour and a half ahead of time, and I was going 90,
wow.
and I was like, and so it felt like it wasn't that amount of time. It was like 2 minutes
Yeah.
to me and her, and I looked down and I'm doing 90, and how did I get to 90 in less than 2 minutes?
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, I would have to know. I mean, I would physically have to just, yeah,
Were
it
you
was 2 minutes.
focusing
It
on
was
anything
less.
specific, or was it just kind of like you were watching the lightning and it was almost like put you into a trance?
No, I was concentrating on driving. It was just more or less, it was just a light show. But when I looked down and we were doing 55, and I looked up, and then when I looked down again, I was doing 90, and an hour and a half had passed.
Oh,
And I was like, okay, what happened?
that's a lot. That's
So,
some time skipping right there.
right. Either it was an hour or an hour and a half. I don't remember, but I think what on my other episode I talked about it on the paranormal memoirs. I think it was an hour, but yeah, it was just. And then after that, it was just all these weird things happening, and
Synchronous.
yeah, it was a bizarre trip, but the mountains are there's something about the mountains.
Yeah.
The Colorado Rocky Mountains are, I would say, to me, in my opinion, that's like God's playground, and so I really love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
but I know that there's a lot of spiritual energies up there,
Yeah.
especially especially those some of those old towns that are kind of like old ghost towns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just yeah, that's probably why I like to go up there. It's just the energies up there. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah,
So
you think about then the less amount of technology they really had to pay attention more to their surroundings.
mhm.
And now it's, we can sit there and be in a trance on our phone, and it's like you
Right,
stop paying
right,
attention to things that are around, or, hey, I have this feeling this isn't right, and listen to it. It's become a,
right,
oh, let me doom scroll.
right. Well, and I think a lot of that, like the EMFs that come off our phone and like the towers, the 5G towers and everything, I think that is affecting people.
Yeah,
I mean, and people, there's been other people that have talked about it. And if you live by a tower or right underneath it, it's going to affect you negatively. And it can affect you. And
yeah.
yeah, so it's just, you have to wonder, and some of the stuff that we're experiencing or seeing, is it real or is it because of electronic devices, or is it the frequencies or the radio waves or microwaves or whatever,
Yeah.
so yeah, but just different. So yeah, but yeah, so there's quite a few different places that I would like to go to as well, that have had tragedies, that and kind of explore, like when I was
Are
in
there
Turkey.
any specific that you're just like, I really want to go here, but I haven't been?
um there's certain places in Chicago,
Okay.
with the Chicago fire. And back then, I mean, a lot of that, and plus the fact that a lot of that, I'm into, the old mobsters and gangsters, back when, because I
Yeah, I remember you talking about the past life with that. Yeah,
yeah, and I lived,
100%.
and I live in a town in between the border, of Illinois. So it's like, and we used to have a lot of stories of gangsters that would come up to hang out by the lake. And there's certain people, I do have a story that there was a place called the Old Country Inn, French Country Inn. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Back in the day, it was all the wood was shipped over here from Europe back in the 1900s or whatever it was, and 1900s. And then this guy built this building, this home or whatever it was, this lake in Lake Como, which is our sister lake, Lake Geneva. And um, there was, back in the early days of the mobsters, and that was a hot spot, right? Well,
Huh.
fast forward to 1986. Um, there was a family that, husband and wife, I do believe, bought this property because it was in disrepair and it needed to be taken back. And so they were going to make a restaurant out of it, I think, or they were going to remodel. I don't know. But they started knocking down walls, and behind one wall, they found two G men from the 1920s or 30s, or you FBI agents, or Hoover put it all together, and yeah, they were frozen in time behind a wall. And
Wow.
right, so I mean, having said that, I can only imagine all the stuff that had gone on there, and I drive by that place on a daily basis,
Huh.
you know. So I mean, me, I can pretty much drive by any old building or whatever and tell you if it's haunted or not. Just
Yeah.
by drive by in it and by it. And but yeah, this and I've never been there yet. I have not been there, but uh, my wife has, and she went there years ago and said the food was awful. But it's
Oh,
changed hands a couple times now.
mm,
But but yeah, I mean, there's so many different buildings around here that have that. I don't know, that history. That
yeah,
gangster history is really intriguing for me. You know, and
yeah.
but but yeah, so
Uh,
talking about like the Chicago fire and this and that, I can only imagine, some of the leftover stuff from that, you know what I mean? And even when the gangsters were, but even back then they were, and they were, rebuilding certain things and areas and talking about, in the paper today, they were talking about Cicero in
mm,
Chicago. Now,
yeah.
Cicero was a big, huge gangster hangout and back in the day, and a lot of prohibition and alcohol exchanged hands through those streets of those. Cicero now is really kind of like a ghost town, and
Huh.
it's really
That'd be a good, interesting place to go.
uh yes and no.
Yeah,
Well, be just because the fact that it's very, it's not so much, and I'm not trying to knock any of the towns around Chicago or whatever, because it's got probably great history. There's only a couple original buildings left in Cicero, from what I read,
mm,
but just you know, it's not a safe place to just walk at night. Let's put it that
right.
way. You know what I mean? So
So you basically have to be
every
locked inside of a building or something all night
pretty
long.
much, yeah, and
Yeah.
even then, that would be kind of freaky, you know. But yeah, but there's a lot of cool places up north and here in Wisconsin that a lot of the mobsters used to just hang out up here. You know what I mean? And John Dellinger hung out up here. Al Capone hung out up here. His brother had a bar up in Mercer, Wisconsin, and I think he passed away in the 1950s.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it was like those ties because they wanted to get away from the city and they wanted to do a lot of their dealings, you know, away from the
Prying
law,
eyes.
basically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but even then, it was a getaway for
Yeah.
them. So yeah, but I mean, it's just the history of like the shootouts. That would be another one too.
Yeah.
Even the shootout up here in Mercer or Manitowish Waters, where they had a Little Bohemian,
Yeah.
where they filmed the Public Enemy movie with Johnny Depp
Oh, wow.
about John Dellinger. Yeah, that was filmed. I've been there. I've got pictures of that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I got I've got pictures of that with, and there's pictures of Johnny Depp and you know back in the day, and in a case
So kind of
John Dellinger bag was left over, and
so with something like that where almost like the Valentine's thing where
yeah,
like
yeah,
like that to me would be what if every year on an anniversary if people are there that like it's residual and almost like they're ducking and they're having to almost not relive
right.
it but yeah,
Yeah, if you really think about it, you know, if you, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like if it's that, if the residual and it replays itself, I mean, is there is there a way to figure out if that is actually true? I mean, it does every
yeah,
anniversary they people talk about the death or anniversary, and they can sense this or do that. It's like, why does it have to be a year? Why does it have to be
yeah,
that day? Is it
like
just that
does it,
day?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Is it just that day that leaves an imprint that it happens that way? How does the cycle form then?
yeah, or is
You know
it
what I
just
mean?
like if the energy is quote unquote right, like electrical storm or
What's imprint? Why does it have to be a
Yeah.
whole
Or
year?
like even,
A whole
yeah,
year.
or just someone who's that intuitive. Like,
Right, right, right,
yeah, someone who picks up on it. Like clearly if you walk into a place or someone who doesn't understand that they have those gifts, they walk into
hmm
a place and they're immediate like terrified or immediately just
right,
overwhelming emotion, or they have these videos in their mind that they don't understand. Like,
right,
I mean, that could tell you it has nothing to do with a date on a calendar because time is
right,
parallel, right? So,
right,
I mean,
right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really weird though. I mean, but there again, that's something maybe we don't understand. Maybe it's there's so many
yeah,
what ifs, especially
yeah,
with spiritualism, you know.
yeah,
But yeah, so this has been kind of fun. I was just doing a little short video that we want to hang out and just talk about whatever for half hour or so, and it's getting to be where I'm at. It's getting to be my bedtime because I try to go to bed early because I got to be up early.
oh
But
yeah,
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 no, but it's good to see you and it's good to hang out with you, and you know um I have to work on getting another guest soon for
yeah, yeah, for
32
sure.
and
Yeah,
whatnot. And if anybody's listening out there and you have ideas for a show on 32 on spiritualism or paranormal or whatever, you could send me an email at studio6369 at gmail.com. And Studio 6, it's SIX too, by the way. um, so yeah, send me an email or whatnot. And you can follow us on Facebook. I'm on TikTok as J Paranormal, which will be it's also Encompass Media. You can find me on YouTube as well. I have all my shows on there, all my paranormal shows, and my metal music show. So I've got a
that's
lot of
exciting.
irons in the fire. So you know, but yeah, and we're busy and but I want to say thanks to everybody that tuned in and hung out with us for the half hour or so, and we'll have to do this again. So
Yeah, it's fun.
thanks everybody.
There are things in this world that are not always what they seem. There are also moments in time that we see, hear,